Okay, hello everyone. Today we're here in Microsoft Flight Simulator 2020 in the Airbus A320. We have a 241 nautical mile night flight from India Alpha Delta Washington Dulles to Juliet Foxtrot Kilo Kennedy International. We'll be flying the United Airlines livery for this flight, and the airport that we're taking off from is a payway airport. So this is Washington Dulles by Flightbeam Studios. I have Flightbeam Studios KPDX Portland, both for X-Plane and Microsoft Flight Simulator, and I love all the detail that they put into their airports. Tonight we'll be doing a full startup with Flybywire's A32NX mod for the Airbus 320, and it should be awesome. So let's hop into the flight deck and get started. Alright, we will need to use our headlamp until we get the batteries on. So we'll start by getting the dome light on before the batteries. It'll make it easier. So there you go. Battery 1, battery 2, dome light comes on. We'll get external power on. Do our APU fire test. That looks good. We'll head down and turn on the APU master and start up the APU. That'll take a little while to get up, so we'll get the lights up while we're waiting for that. Next we'll get all 6 of our pumps on. That looks good. Crew oxygen is on. Check our circuit breakers. Everything looks good there. Head back down and get all of our displays turned up. So it's the 2 knobs on the center stack here on the left. And then we'll turn up our MCDU displays for the pilot and the co-pilot. And that's looking better. Check that our parking brake is set and our flaps are at 0, and while we're here we'll turn up the pedestal floodlights and the integrated lights. That's the 2 knobs on the top flanking the throttle. Then we'll head up here and turn up our PFD displays to the center, turn up the autopilot integrated lights and the displays. And we'll head back up to the top here. We'll get AIDERs 1, 2, and 3 set to nav. Next we'll get the strobes to auto. Turn on the nav and logo lights. Then we will turn on the seatbelt and no smoking lights. Arm the emergency exit lights. Then adjust the air temperature for the cabin and the passenger compartment. Put those at center. That looks good. APU is now available, so we can do our engine 1, engine 2 fire test. Those look good, and then we can head back down here and turn on APU bleed, which will pull power from the APU. The bleed button's right there above the window probe button, and there it is. So bleed is on, so we're now pulling power from the little engine in the back of the aircraft until the main engines are powered up. Now that we've got comms, let's call ground and get some of our services going, get the jetway connected, and get our passengers on board. And I love all of the ground animations for Microsoft Flight Simulator. The animated gates, the catering trucks, the baggage compartments, doors opening, closing, it all looks fantastic. So while this is going on, we will call up clearance delivery and get our IFR clearance. Dulles clearance, United 5434, IFR to Kennedy, ready to copy. Cleared to Kennedy via the Jacoby for departure, Agar transition, climb via the SID, maintain 3000, expect file 10 minutes after departure. Departure 125.05 squawk 5313, United 5434.
Welcome aboard. Before we depart, please remove the safety card from the seat pocket in front of you and follow along as we demonstrate the safety features of this Airbus A320 airplane. We appreciate your complete attention to this important safety information.
Alright, we've got the safety video playing for our passengers, so we'll go and input the cost index and our cruise altitude of 17,000. You get the cost index from SimBrief. Then we will initialize the inertial reference system, which is how the plane knows where it is. So that'll take 6 or 7 minutes. It says GPS primary lost until that is done. And the PFDs won't show any navigational data until then. Then we will hit the right arrow over here and put in the 0 fuel weight, which you can also get from SimBrief, and the 0 fuel weight center of gravity, which you can get from the weights screen in Microsoft Flight Simulator. The block fuel weight is right on your ECAM here, so that's 9.4 thousand. So we will enter that for block as a decimal. That looks good. There's my fuel projections. Next, we'll press the flight plan button and make sure that everything is entered correctly for our flight plan. So I set up this flight plan in the flight planning tool of Microsoft Flight Simulator on the pre-launch screen, which is really the best way to get the information into here. You can enter it manually, but it'll work out all the altitudes for you if you enter it on the main screen. So everything looks correct here. We've got our approaches, our departures, our RNAV arrival, so that's good. Now we'll head over to the perf screen for performance. Enter in our flaps setting, our transition altitude, and our flex to temp, which I got from the Flex to Temp tool. I'll put the link in the details. Then we'll press V1, V2, V3 buttons twice. That will calculate our rotate speeds and V1 and V2 speeds. Back to ATSU, AOC message, weather request, and we'll request a METAR. So this will send a message to our company, which will text message us back with the weather for both of our airports. That takes a few seconds. It'll show up as a received message once it comes in. It'll actually show up on the panel here. You can see company message, so it's been received on the ECAM. So go over to received messages, press METAR, that's the message there, and there it is. So for both airports, we can also do that in flight to get the weather. Normally they could print that out. The print feature isn't set up yet, but I think they're working on that with the Flybywire mod. If you watch the PFD here, there it is. So it just came online because the inertial reference system is calibrated and it knows where we are. So we'll head up here, dial in the barometer on the left, and then I'm going to set the speed limit of 250, which we need to stay below, at or below 250 knots when we're below 10,000 feet. We'll put our initial altitude on the altitude setting there, turn on the flight directors, and that's all we really need for autopilot for now. Then we'll head back down to the main panel here. We'll configure the PFD for weather on weather 1 and PWS, which I cannot remember what that stands for, but we'll put that into auto. The jetway has been removed and the door just closed, so we will alert the flight attendants for gate departure. Flight attendants, cabin crew, prepare for gate departure. Back up to the overhead panel and we'll get on the beacon to alert the ground crew that we're getting ready. Flight attendants, cabin crew, doors and automatic cross-check and report, thank you. And we've got our pushback underway. There are some payware plugins to help you with pushback, just like there are for X-Plane, and I'm thinking of getting one of them because it can be a real challenge to get your plane lined up correctly using the in-game system. And our tug is pulling away. We're going to start up our engine number 1 now. So we'll head back down to the center pedestal. We'll put the selector into ignition. And then we will start engine number 1, which is the left-hand engine from the pilot seat. Then we're going to monitor the engine display to make sure that we have a good start. And once the engine is fully started up and stabilized, then we'll head back down here and start up engine number 2. I've dimmed the lights while that was getting started up. Looks like we're stable, so let's flip the switch for engine 2 and get that one started up. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, this is your captain speaking. I would like to welcome you aboard Flight 5434 with non-stop service to Kennedy tonight. We should be airborne shortly. Our flying time tonight is 45 minutes. We'll give you an update once we are at cruise altitude. With engine 2 started up, we'll put the mode back into normal, into the center mode. Then we'll head up to the overhead panel, and now we've got power from the engine, so we can turn off the APU and turn off the master switch for the APU, along with the external power, and we are self-sufficient, so we're powering ourselves with both of the engines. We'll check our cabin report page to make sure we don't have any warnings. Everything looks good, so we are ready to taxi. Dulles ground, United 5434 with information Tango, taxi. Taxi and hold short, runway 1 center via Delta Zulu Yankee 9, United 5434. Before we start rolling, I'll take you quickly through the brief. So we have a 241 nautical mile departure from Washington Dulles to JFK. We'll be flying east to the coast and then out over the water, approaching JFK from the south. We will be flying the Jacoby 4 departure with the Agard transition, which I keep slipping and calling Asgard. Then we'll be doing the Cameron 4 arrival to JFK, followed by the Arnav Zulu approach to runway 31 left. I was able to set up all of that in the flight planner prior to getting in the airplane, so that simplified the FMC inputs. Part of the reason I chose a night flight for this flight is because the night lighting at this Payware airport is just fantastic. And you know, it almost doesn't do it justice, because during the daytime you can see all of the detail. I mean, every ramp, every parking spot is just filled with stuff. It really feels like an airport. So Flightbeam Studios does a fantastic job. I loved their Portland airport for the same reason, and as soon as I saw they had other airports for Microsoft Flight Simulator, I had to get them. Dulles Tower, United 5434 holding short, runway 1 center. Cleared for takeoff, runway 1 center, United 5434. Flight attendants, prepare for takeoff, please. Cabin crew, please take your seats. Alright, as we get lined up onto the runway, the Airbus A320 has 3 detents on the throttle. So you've got a manual mode, then you have climb, flex, and toga. So toga is full power, flex is less than full power, and it's based on what we entered into the MCDU before. So it's a calculated takeoff rate based on runway settings that saves wear and tear on the engines. And then once we get to 1,000 feet, we'll put it into climb mode, and it needs to be in climb mode for the auto throttle to work, and many of the other autopilot functions. I don't have an Airbus throttle quadrant with detent pins, so I actually find it's easiest just to use the mouse to adjust the throttle. And we are in climb mode now, so we'll go up here and make sure that our autopilot is on. My flight director's on, auto throttle is on. So that should climb us up to our initial altitude setting of 5,000 at a speed no greater than 250. And we're set. Get our landing lights off and retract them. We'll go and turn our nose light off. Good evening again, ladies and gentlemen. This is your captain. Our A320 is presently climbing to our cruising altitude of 17,000 feet. We're expecting a smooth ride, and our flight plan shows an en route time of 45 minutes with an on-time arrival in New York of 7:30 local time. On behalf of my crew, I hope you enjoy your flight. Alright, we're looking good, so let's sit back and enjoy some of that scenery. that was a lot of fun. We did it. We made it to JFK at night in the Airbus. I love the complexity of starting up this aircraft, going through all the procedures, working out the IFR route, and then coming in for the landing. So it's a really cool change from the little Cessnas that I like to fly on my channel. If you enjoy content like this, be sure to click that like button, leave me a comment, and don't forget to subscribe. As always, thanks a lot for flying along with me, and stay tuned for further flight adventures.